HOA. Karen called 911. After I opened my garage, accused me of stealing her new car. That's right. All I did was press the button. My garage door rolled up. And suddenly, my quiet morning turned into a crime scene. Karen stood there, pointing, screaming at the top of her lungs, "You stole it! You stole my brand new car!" Her voice echoed across the neighborhood. Neighbors rushed to their windows. Some even stepped outside to watch. And then she dialed 911. Within minutes, flashing sirens filled our street. But here's the part that will shock you the most. Welcome back to HOA Unit, where I share the wildest, most unbelievable stories from inside our neighborhoods. My name is Daniel. I live in a small suburban community just outside Phoenix, Arizona. I work from home. Quiet life. Simple routines. But trust me, in this neighborhood, simple never lasts long, because when Karen moved in across the street, everything changed. The police lights still echoed in my head. But before I tell you how it all went down, let me take you back to that morning. It was quiet. The kind of quiet you only hear in the suburbs when everyone's gone to work. No lawnmowers, no kids screaming, just the soft hum of birds in the distance. I stood in my kitchen with a cup of coffee, steam rising slowly into the sunlight that slipped through my blinds. Another normal day, or at least, it should have been. I pressed the button on my remote. The familiar sound of my garage door began to rise. Metal grinding, gears turning, that same old sound I'd heard 100 times before, but this time it felt different, like I had just unlocked something dangerous, like the whole street was about to change. When the door lifted halfway, I saw her, Karen. She was standing across the street, arms folded tight across her chest. Her face was stiff, tough, her eyes narrow, like she had been waiting for this moment. Like she already knew what was about to happen. The sun caught her glasses, reflecting sharp lines of light, but nothing was brighter than the anger on her face. It wasn't normal anger. It was the kind of anger that grows from obsession, the kind that doesn't let you sleep at night. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe she was just out walking her dog, or admiring her brand new car parked in her driveway. But no, her focus wasn't on her car or her yard. Her eyes were locked on me, and more specifically, on my garage. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why was she staring at me like that? Why did it feel like I was about to be accused of something? The garage door finished its climb, and that's when I noticed it. The way her mouth twitched, the way her jaw dropped like she had just seen a ghost. Inside my garage sat my car, red, polished, shining under the single light bulb, the same red that matched hers, same make, same model. Only difference was mine had a dent on the back fender from a shopping cart accident months ago. Karen froze. Her hands began to shake. Her face turned red, and then she pointed at me. Her voice cracked the silence like a thunderbolt. "You thief! You stole my car." For a second, I laughed. I actually thought it was a joke. Because who would accuse someone of stealing their car while their own car was literally sitting across the street in plain sight? But she wasn't joking. Her voice grew louder, sharper, more hysterical. "You stole it! I bought that car yesterday, and you put it in your garage." Neighbors started to stir. I could see blinds lifting, faces peeking out. One man walked out in his slippers holding a mug of coffee. Another woman grabbed her phone and started recording. And there I was, standing in front of my own garage. Suddenly the villain in this bizarre play. I raised my hands, not in fear, but in disbelief. "This is my car. I've had it for months." I tried to explain, but the words didn't matter. Not to her, not to the crowd that was starting to gather. Karen stepped forward, her fingers still locked on me, her breathing heavy, her chest rising like she had just run a marathon. She was convinced, fully convinced, and that conviction was dangerous. I felt a pit in my stomach because this wasn't just a neighbor being dramatic. This was Karen, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, and when Karen believed something, she dragged the entire neighborhood into her storm. My heart raced. What was she going to do next? Was she really about to make this bigger than it already was? The answer came quick. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her hands shaking but her voice loud and clear. She began to dial, and as the numbers lit up on her screen, I realized where this was going. She wasn't just accusing me to my face. She was about to bring the law into this. She was about to turn my quiet morning into a neighborhood circus. And that's where I'll pause, because I want to know what you think. If your neighbor accused you of stealing their car and then reached for their phone to call 911, would you try to reason with them, or would you stay silent and let the police sort it out? Tell me in the comments. I really want to hear your take on this. The phone was still in her hand, her fingers tight around it like it was a weapon. Her voice carried across the street as she spoke to the dispatcher, and I stood there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of her madness. The neighbors leaned in closer. Whispers began. Eyes darted between my garage and her driveway, and then, that's when I noticed it again. Her car, the one she claimed was stolen, it was sitting there, untouched, right across the street. Shiny red paint glistened in the sunlight. Sheesh plates. Temporary tags still taped to the back window. It was new. Too new, like she had just driven it off the lot hours ago. She walked around it earlier that morning. I remember watching her from my window as she inspected every inch, running her hands over the hood, crouching down to check the tires. She admired it like it was more than just a car. It was her trophy, her proof of victory in this suburban war she waged with everyone. And now, she looked at my car like it was an imposter, like two red cars in one neighborhood was a crime in itself. The irony was sharp. Two cars, nearly identical, parked just yards away from each other, hers in the open, mine in the garage. But in her mind, they couldn't both exist. One had to be stolen. One had to belong to her. Her voice rose louder on the phone. Yes, officer. He took it. I saw him hiding it in his garage. My fists clenched at my sides. Hiding it. She made it sound like I was some thief creeping in the night. Dragging her car into my house like a burglar with a prize. The neighbors' whispers grew. I could feel the weight of their eyes pressing against me. Some of them trusted Karen. Others didn't. But curiosity made them all hungry for a show. I stepped closer to my garage, ran my hand across the hood of my car. It was warm from the engine. I drove it last night to pick up groceries. The dent on the back fender was still there, plain as day. The leather seats still smelled faintly of pine air freshener. I kept clipped to the vent. This was mine. My money. My insurance. My title sitting in a folder inside my desk drawer. But none of that mattered to Karen. Her truth was the only truth she believed. She finally ended her call, her breathing heavy, face flushed. And then she shouted again for the whole street to hear. Police are on their way, and when they get here, you're going to jail. Her words hit me like a slap. Jail. All because I owned a car that looked like hers. The absurdity of it all made me laugh under my breath. But laughter only made her angrier. Her eyes narrowed into thin slits. She stepped closer, pointing at me like she was a judge delivering a sentence. You think this is funny? You're done in this neighborhood. Her new car sat behind her, the proud prize she thought no one else could touch, and I realized something. This wasn't about the car, not really. This was about power, about control. Karen didn't just want the nicest lawn or the tallest mailbox. She wanted to be the only one with that car. The only one who could shine in this street of sameness. She bought it yesterday. And today, she decided no one else could possibly own one just like it. So she made me the thief, the villain in her story. My chest grew tight as I thought of what would come next. Police pulling up, neighbors recording every second, my name whispered through every kitchen window. How do you defend yourself when the crowd already picked sides? I looked around at the faces. Some eyes showed doubt, some amusement, some pity. But no one spoke. No one stepped forward to tell her she was wrong. Silence was safer than crossing Karen. The quiet suburban street felt heavy now, like the calm before a storm that could swallow me whole. I stepped out of my garage, stood firm in the middle of my driveway, and locked my eyes on Karen. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just stood there, waiting. Because deep down, I wanted her lies to collapse on their own. But as the minutes passed, the distant hum of sirens began to grow. They were coming closer, faster, and my stomach twisted into knots. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Phones rose higher. Recording Lee. Gets blinking. Karen straightened her back, proud, ready to deliver me to the authorities like a hunter dragging home a kill. And I wondered, when those flashing lights turned the corner, would they believe her? Or me? The sound of sirens grew louder, and with every second, the crowd around me swelled. It wasn't just a couple of neighbors anymore. It felt like the whole street had gathered to see the show. But before the flashing lights even touched our cul-de-sac, Karen raised her voice again, her hands waving in the air, her face twisted in rage. He stole it. I saw him. He hid my brand new car in his garage. The words cut through the air like glass. People gasped. Others whispered. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just accusing me. She was performing. This wasn't about me and my car anymore. This was about her audience. She needed them to see her as the victim. The innocent homeowner robbed by the criminal across the street. My jaw tightened. My hands balled into fists. I wanted to shout back. I wanted to remind everyone that her shiny red car was still parked behind her, untouched. But then I saw their faces. Some neighbors already believed her, others weren't sure, and a few were enjoying the drama too much to care about the truth. Her voice grew sharper, louder. She broke into my driveway, hot-wired my car, and now look, it's in his garage. She wasn't even making sense anymore, but the louder she got, the less sense seemed to matter. Volume was her weapon, and she used it well. I stepped closer to my garage, pointed to my car, the dent on the back fender, the stack of receipts inside on the passenger seat. This is mine, I said firmly. I bought it months ago. I can prove it. But Karen's laugh echoed down the street. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was a sharp, cruel sound that made the hair on my neck rise. Prove it? Oh, you'll have to, in front of the police? She turned to the crowd. Watch. You'll all see. Justice is coming. And that's when I realized the danger I was in. It didn't matter that the truth was sitting in her own driveway. It didn't matter that I had paperwork inside my house. What mattered was perception, and right now, she had already painted me as guilty. The sirens were close now. Flashing red and blue lights danced against the houses at the end of the street. Karen spread her arms wide like she was welcoming the cavalry. Her voice rose even higher. Over here. He's the one. The thief. The liar. I felt the weight of every eye on me. I could hear the sound of phones recording. The story was already being written in their minds, and no matter what I said, I wasn't sure anyone was going to listen. I took a deep breath, the air heavy in my chest, and I thought back to every run-in I had with Karen before this day, the complaints about my grass being too long, the letters about my trash bins sitting out too late, The threats of fines for parking half an inch too close to the curb. She always needed someone to blame, always needed someone to be the villain in her suburban kingdom, and today she had chosen me again. Only this time, she wasn't just waving HOA letters. This time, she was waving the law in my face. The first police car pulled in. Sirens fading but lights still flashing. The crowd parted like a curtain. Karen rushed forward like an actress ready for her big scene. She pointed at me so hard her arm shook. There. That's him. He stole my car. Her words were sharp, desperate, almost convincing. The officer turned his head, his eyes landing on me, and in that moment, it felt like the entire world had gone silent. Just me, my car, and her accusation hanging in the air. I wanted to shout, I wanted to tell him everything, but the lump in my throat kept me still. And then, something strange happened. The officer's eyes flicked from me to my garage, to Karen's driveway. For just a moment, his face twitched like he could already see the truth, but Karen didn't notice. She kept screaming, pacing, repeating the same words over and over. He stole it, he stole it, he stole it. The second police car pulled up. More neighbors stepped closer. The air buzzed with tension, thick enough to choke on. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is how rumors become records, how lies become evidence, all because two red cars happened to exist on the same street. I tightened my grip on the keys in my pocket. Proof of ownership, proof of truth. But even with the metal pressed against my palm, I wondered, would proof even matter against the noise she created? The irony was almost painful. Her car sat untouched, less than 20 feet away from her, but she was so blinded by her own pride, her own need to be right, that she couldn't see what everyone else could, or maybe she refused to see it because admitting she was wrong was worse than lying out loud. The officers hadn't even stepped out of their cars yet, and already Karen's voice was piercing the air, her hands flailing, her finger pointing straight at me. She's the one. That's the thief. Arrest him now. Her words felt heavy, like they weren't just meant for the police, but for every neighbor watching, every whispering mouth, every recording phone. She wanted them all to believe the same story. The officers stayed calm. One of them lifted a hand to quiet her. But Karen didn't stop. She spoke faster, louder, her story twisting into something even wilder. He broke into my driveway. He hot-wired my car. He hid it inside his garage so nobody would know. The crowd gasped. Some of them shook their heads. Others leaned in closer, hungry for more drama. I could feel their stares cutting into me. I wasn't just a man standing in his driveway anymore. I was the neighborhood's villain. Whether I liked it or not, I took a slow step forward, raised my voice just enough to be heard. This is my car. I bought it months ago. I have the title and keys inside my house. But Karen spun toward me, her eyes wide, her voice breaking with fury. Liar! You're lying. Everyone saw you. You pushed my car into your garage before I came outside. It didn't even make sense. Her car was right there in plain sight. But reason wasn't part of her performance. Drama was. The officer finally spoke. Ma'am, we'll handle this, but we need you to calm down. Karen scoffed, like she had just been insulted. Calm down? He stole my car, and you're telling me to calm down? She turned to the crowd. You all saw it, didn't you? Didn't you see him hiding it? Silence. Nobody spoke. Nobody admitted to seeing anything, because there was nothing to see. But that silence only fueled her. Fine. You're all afraid, but I'm not. I want him arrested now. The second officer walked closer to me, his expression neutral, his voice steady. Sir, do you have proof this vehicle belongs to you? I nodded quickly. Yes, inside. I have all the papers, insurance, registration, everything. My words came out rushed, desperate, because in that moment, I wasn't just defending a car. I was defending myself. But Karen cut me off. Don't listen to him. He forged it all. I know how people like him work. Those words hit different. People like him. It wasn't just about a car anymore. She wanted to paint me as something worse, something bigger. And judging by the uncomfortable glances from the neighbors, it worked. My chest tightened. My hands shook in my pockets for the first time. I felt something heavier than anger. I felt fear, because what if they believed her? What if those flashing lights ended with me in handcuffs? What if proof wasn't enough against the voice of the loudest person on the street? The officer kept his eyes on me. "Sir, if you could bring your documents out here, that would help clear things up." I nodded again, but my feet didn't move. Not yet. Because Karen's voice rose once more. "Don't let him go inside. He'll hide the evidence. He'll make something up." The absurdity was suffocating. Every step I tried to take toward the truth. She tried to twist into another crime. The crowd buzzed louder, phones still recording, eyes still fixed. Some neighbors smirked, entertained by the chaos. Others frowned, unsure what to believe. I looked back at my car, the dent on the fender, the scratch on the mirror, little scars from my life, proof that it was mine. But scars don't speak, paperwork does, and I needed to get it. I opened my mouth to answer the officer, but Karen's voice crashed over me again. "He's stalling. Look at him. Guilty people always stall." My blood boiled. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag her to her own driveway and force her to look at her brand new car sitting untouched in front of everyone, but instead, I swallowed my rage because anger was her weapon, not mine. The officer finally turned to her. "Ma'am, your car. Is that it behind you?" Karen blinked. Her head whipped around for the briefest second. "Yes, but that's not the point. This one is mine too." Laughter rippled through the crowd, not loud, not cruel, but enough to break the tension for a moment. Even the officer's lips twitched like he was holding back a smile. But Karen didn't laugh. Her face burned red. Her voice grew sharper. "You're all blind, don't you see? He copied my car. He's trying to ruin me." Her words echoed against the houses, and in that moment, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about accusation. This was as obsession. She couldn't stand the idea of someone else having what she had. She needed to be the only one, and if she couldn't, she'd rather destroy me than admit it. The air grew heavier. The lights from the cruisers flashed against the houses. The crowd whispered, laughed, argued quietly. But inside, I felt something shift, because this wasn't just a neighbor problem anymore. This was turning into something much bigger. The officer turned back to me. "Sir, let's get your paperwork before this gets any worse." And as I nodded and finally turned toward my front door, I felt every eye follow me, every camera recording my back, every whisper slicing into me. And I thought to myself, was truth really enough to win against someone willing to scream louder than everyone else? The moment I stepped toward my front door, Karen's voice ripped through the air again. "Don't let him go. He's hiding something. He's going to fake the papers." The officer raised his hand, signaling me to wait. The crowd shifted, whispering, buzzing with curiosity. And suddenly, I was trapped between her madness and their silence. I turned slowly, my eyes locking on Karen. She stood there with her arms spread wide, her chest heaving, her face flushed, like she was a hero about to be crowned in front of her kingdom. I wanted to shout, to throw every piece of truth in her face. But instead, I stayed still because I knew, in moments like this, every word could twist against me. The officer tried again. "Ma'am, step back. Let him get his paperwork." But Karen stomped her foot against the pavement. "No, you don't understand. He planned this. He copied my car. He's trying to humiliate me." Her words stabbed at me. Copied her car. Humiliate her. As if my entire life revolved around her existence. The arrogance was breathtaking, almost laughable. But nobody was laughing now. The neighbors leaned closer, their faces lit by the flashing red and blue lights, phones still raised, some shaking from excitement. Every second felt like a scene from a bad movie. Except it was my life. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm, steady, but sharp enough to cut through her noise. "This is my car. I can prove it. You don't have to believe me, but the papers will." Karen's laugh came like broken glass. "You think paper matters? Criminals always have fake papers." She spun to the officer again. "Check his garage. You'll see. He's hiding more." More. The word sank into me like a knife. She wasn't just accusing me of stealing one car anymore. Now she wanted the world to believe I was a full-time thief, a criminal running a garage full of stolen treasures. The crowd gasped. Someone muttered under their breath, and my stomach twisted, because lies, when shouted loud enough, start to feel like truth to those who want entertainment. The officer stepped closer, his hand resting near his belt, his eyes scanning between us. "Sir, I'll need you to stay here while I look at the vehicle." I nodded slowly, because what choice did I have? My truth was parked in front of them, waiting to be seen. But still, my chest tightened as the officer walked to my garage. His flashlight clicked on. The beam landed on the hood of my car, then swept over the dented fender, the scratched mirror, the worn tires. He paused, bent lower, studied it for longer than I expected, and in that silence, Karen's voice erupted again. "See? He repainted it. He changed the plates. That's mine. It's mine." Her shrill cry sliced through the night. The crowd buzzed again, some nodding, some smirking, some rolling their eyes. And me? I felt my jaw ache from clenching so hard, because how do you fight someone who can twist every fact into a lie? The officer straightened. He walked back slowly, his face unreadable, and my heart raced with every step he took. Would he believe the papers in my house, or the lies screaming in his ears? Karen rushed forward before he could even speak. "Well, did you see? That's my car. Arrest him." The officer didn't answer her. Instead, he turned to me. "Sir, let's go inside and get your paperwork." Relief washed over me for a moment, but Karen wasn't done. She lunged forward, her voice cracking like thunder. "He's stalling. Don't let him inside. He'll fake it all. You need to cuff him right now." The crowd gasped. I froze, because for the first time, she wasn't just accusing anymore. She was demanding my arrest, demanding my humiliation in front of everyone. The second officer finally stepped between us, his voice firm, louder than hers. "Ma'am, step back, or we'll have to remove you." For a split second, silence. The kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. Karen's mouth opened, closed, her face twisted, her hands shook, and then she stepped back just enough, but her eyes never left mine, cold, furious, unblinking, like she was daring me to move. I swallowed hard, turned toward my door, and for the first time, my legs felt heavy, because I realized something terrifying. Even if the papers cleared me, even if the officers believed me, the damage was already done. The neighbors had seen it, heard it, recorded it. Karen had branded me as a thief in front of the entire street, and no piece of paper could erase the whispers that would follow. I paused at my front step, my hand hovering over the door handle, and I asked myself a question I couldn't shake. Why was she doing this? Why me? Why now? Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about cars. This was about power, about her need to crush anyone who dared stand equal to her. And tonight, she wanted the whole world to watch her victory. The night air was heavy. But inside my chest, it felt even heavier. Every step I took toward my front door, I could feel Karen's eyes drilling into my back. Every breath, every move, was being judged by her. And by the crowd waiting like an audience at a twisted show, the officer followed Chloe. See behind me, his boots steady on the walkway, his flashlight beam sliding over my walls. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hesitating, but that calm made my nerves even worse, because I knew. Once I opened that drawer, once I handed him those papers, there would be no turning back. It would either end the madness or make it 10 times worse. As I pushed open the door, the hinges squeaked louder than usual, almost like they were screaming too. I flicked on the light, and the familiar sight of my living room greeted me. But tonight, it felt different. It felt like a courtroom where the jury was waiting outside, and the verdict rested in my hands. I walked straight to the cabinet near the desk. My fingers trembled slightly. Fumbling at the drawer handle, I could hear Karen's muffled voice outside, still shouting, still insisting I was lying. Even through the closed door, her voice pierced right through. It was like she lived in my walls. The officer stood by the door, watching me closely, not suspicious, but alert, ready for anything. And I realized one wrong move, one sign of hesitation, and even he might start doubting me, finally. I pulled out the folder. The papers were there, the purchase receipt, the registration, the insurance, proof of every detail that screamed this car was mine. I held them in my hands, and for a brief second, I felt power again. Because in a world filled with lies, paper was still paper. It didn't scream. It didn't twist the truth. It just existed. I turned, handed the folder over. The officer flipped it open, scanning page by page. His eyes moved slowly, carefully, and every second felt like an eternity. I could hear footsteps outside, neighbors shifting, phones buzzing, Karen's voice rising again. She forged it. I know she forged it. Don't let him trick you. The officer didn't answer her. His finger traced over the VIN number on the registration. Then he looked up. Sir, the keys to the vehicle, please. I reached into the bowl on the table, the same place I dropped them every evening after work. I handed them over without a word. He nodded and walked outside. The door swung open, and the night swallowed us again. All eyes turned. Karen's face twisted into something almost monstrous. She leaned forward, practically trembling with anticipation. The officer walked to my car, slipped the key into the ignition, and with a soft turn, the engine roared to life. The headlights spilled across the driveway, and for a moment, there was silence. Absolute silence. The neighbors froze, the phones lowered, and even Karen, for 1 second, stopped breathing, because the sound of that engine didn't just prove ownership, it shattered her story, her lie cracked in front of everyone. But then, like a snake refusing to die, she hissed again, "That proves nothing. He could have hacked it. People do that. Criminals do that all the time." The officer closed the door. He shut off the engine and walked back toward her, his face calm. But his voice carried more weight now. "Ma'am, the paperwork matches. The keys match. The VIN matches. This car belongs to him." The crowd exhaled together. Some even muttered, "Finally, about time." But Karen, she didn't hear it. Or maybe she just refused to. She shook her head violently. "No, no, you don't understand. I bought that car. It's mine. He tricked me. He tricked everyone." Her voice cracked. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from rage. She pointed at me with trembling fingers. "He's evil. He's dangerous. You'll see. You'll all see." The officers exchanged a glance, and in that glance, I saw it. They were done with her games. One of them stepped forward. "Ma'am, this needs to stop, right now." But Karen's face hardened, her tears vanished, replaced by a smile that chilled me to my core. "You can't stop me. None of you can." She turned her head slowly, staring at each neighbor, each phone still recording, and then her eyes locked on me again. "You think this is over, but it's not even close." Her words sank into the night like poison, and I realized this wasn't about a car anymore. It was about something much darker, something personal. The officers finally guided her back, firm but controlled, and the crowd began to disperse. Whispering, shaking their heads, some gave me sympathetic looks, others just avoided my eyes. But the damage had already been done. I stood there in the middle of my driveway, the engine of my car still warm, the truth proven, and yet somehow I felt no victory because Karen's last words wouldn't leave me. Her smile, her promise that this wasn't over, and deep down, I knew she meant it. The street was almost empty now. The flashing lights had faded, the crowd had thinned, but her words, her smile, were still carved into my mind. This isn't over. I stood there in the quiet night, staring at my garage. The car sat peacefully inside, like nothing had happened. But I knew better, because Karen didn't lose, not in her world. She was planning her next move, and I could feel it in my bones. I barely slept that night. Every creak in the house, every rustle outside the window, made me sit up. My heart refused to rest, and when the morning sun finally pushed through the blinds, I was already awake, waiting. I stepped outside slowly. The air smelled different, sharp, uneasy, and then I saw it, a note taped to my mailbox, the paper flapping lightly in the breeze. I pulled it off, my hands shaking before I even read it. 4 words, written in black marker: "You stole my life." I froze, because this wasn't about a car anymore. It wasn't about rules or HOA power. This was personal. Karen had convinced herself that I had taken something far bigger than a vehicle. I crumpled the note in my fist, looked around. Her blinds across the street shifted, just a little, enough to let me know she was watching. I walked back inside, my mind racing. I thought about calling the police again. But what would I say? That my neighbor left a creepy note? They'd probably shrug, tell me to ignore it. But ignoring Karen, that wasn't an option anymore. The day passed in a blur. Neighbors avoided me. Some waved awkwardly. Others looked away. And Karen? She stood in her yard at one point, watering her plants with the calmest smile, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't called 911 the night before and tried to ruin my life. But as the sun dipped lower, the unease grew stronger. I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight something else was coming, and I was right. Just past midnight, I heard it, a soft scratching sound at my garage door, not loud, not rushed, just deliberate, like someone wanted me to hear it. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, but my anger stopped me. I was done hiding, done letting her play games with my life. I stormed out the front door, and there she was, Karen, in her robe, her hair wild, her eyes shining with something unhinged, her hand pressed against my garage door like she owned it. The moment she saw me, she didn't fall. "Lynch," she smiled. "You can't keep it. It's mine." Her voice was low, calm, almost whispering. But that made it worse, because calm meant she believed it. She wasn't just pretending anymore. In her mind, it was real. I raised my phone. "You're trespassing. I'm recording this." She stepped closer, her shadow stretching across my driveway. "Record all you want. But when they see the truth, when they finally see what you did, no paper will save you." Her words cut deep, because she wasn't just threatening me. She was threatening what was left of my reputation, my peace, my sanity. And then, lights appeared again. A neighbor across the street had flipped on their porch light. Another lifted a phone. Already filming, Karen turned her head, saw the cameras, and suddenly the calm shattered. She screamed, loud enough to wake the block. "He stole from me. He stole everything. He ruined my life." Her voice cracked through the night. Doors opened. More lights flicked on. And soon, the audience had returned, just like the night before. But this time, something shifted. The neighbors didn't nod along. They didn't smirk. They didn't believe her. I saw it in their faces, the doubt, the exhaustion, the quiet realization that this wasn't about me. This was about her. Karen kept screaming, kept pointing at me, her voice breaking, her body shaking, until finally, the same police car from last night rolled in again. The officers stepped out, and one of them sighed, like he already knew how this was going to end. They walked straight to her, tried to calm her, but she pushed them away, shouting louder, her words spilling nonsense now, broken sentences, wild accusations. And in that moment, the crowd wasn't laughing at me anymore. They were staring at her, at the woman unraveling in the middle of the street, at the neighbor who had finally shown everyone who she really was. The officers took her by the arms, firm this time, guided her toward the car. She kicked, she screamed, but it didn't matter. The door shut, the engine started, and Karen, the queen of control, was gone. The street fell quiet again. Neighbors whispered. Some even came closer, patting my shoulder, muttering things like, "Sorry you had to go through that." She finally lost it, but none of it mattered, because the truth was, Karen had already done her damage. The rumors would linger, the stares wouldn't stop, and even if she never came back, the memory of that night would always live here. I stood in my driveway, staring at my car, at my garage, at the place I used to feel safe, and I wondered, was this really over? Or was Karen right all along, that this was only the beginning?